I don't think I can improve anymore. And as we saw in the last series he played against India and Australia, he wasn't improving. The signs are there. But that was when he retired. Champions always want to get better. The best teams always want to get better. And when they don't, they come to know. But luckily in banking, once you get to be 37, 38, it doesn't mean that you can't improve in your profession anymore, right? Isn't that a good sign? I mean, if you're a sportsman, you'll be coming to the end of your career by 37, 38, but banking, you're still looking ahead? Or you're not?
Yes.
It'd be very strange if you're looking back at 37, 38. I can imagine where next year's conference will be. Change is not an enemy. I talked about this a little while ago. There's one thing that's common in our world today, and one thing good teams are very good at doing, as we talked about, looking at change. Change is a constant, but change is not an enemy. Change only challenges comfort level. And because things are changing all the time, the parameters of success are changing as well. What is good and what is not good is not what it was 10 years ago, it's not what it was when you were much smaller. And that's why success is always in the context of time, space and scale. What was good for HSBC 20 years ago, is that good enough today? Maybe I should ask Raymond that. No, maybe I shouldn't actually. For the sake of you guys, maybe I shouldn't. So, what was good enough for HSBC when they were half their size? Is that good enough today?
No.
Success is always in the context of time, space and scale. What works in Abu Dhabi need not work in Hong Kong. What works in Hong Kong need not work in India. What works in India need not work in China. Success is always very specific, and that's why the word local bank is not a bad line. I mean, some of you all watch Indian movies? A lot of people. Do you think Guru Dutt's movies would work today? I got a snot from somebody. Geez, poor old man in his grave, he must be jumping up and down. Can you say, I'm going to make this lovely black and white movie where the hero glorifies losing? Can you? Where the heroines wear clothes? That would be a change. Yeah? Would it work? Can somebody say, you know what, I produced movies in the 60s and I know what it takes to win? Can Bjorn Borg come back and win today with that lovely old Donny racket of his? I mean, he'll see all these young players in front of them, where the size of the head is as big as the size of his racket. Do you think Jack Nicklaus today would come and won the same way? Would Bradman have averaged 99.94? Only played in 2 countries, only played on 11 grounds all his life. Never travelled to the subcontinent, never went to the West Indies. Would he have averaged 99.94? If he had, I tell you what, I would have been his baggage boy and slave for the rest of his life. Not a chance in hell. Success is always in the context of time, space and scale. What works in one era need not work in another. What works today need not work tomorrow. What works for a 100-ton per annum company need not work for a 2,000-ton per annum company. When we define success, we need to place success in the parameters. So when things change, your definition of success will change as well. Can you imagine? Suppose HSBC was one of 2 banks in the Middle East. I guess definition of success would be X. Suddenly, if HSBC is 1 out of 12 banks, will it be different? But you can't say, you know what, I've been here for so many years. In India, a lot of you know the business environment in India. One budget in 91, 92 changed the way Indians did business, or changed the way Indians looked at business, because it unlocked entrepreneurship. If you look at the list of top 15 Indian business companies in the late 80s, and you look at the top 10 Indian business companies in the first half of this decade, how many do you think are remaining? I think it was Manmohan Singh, when he was speaking at a function recently, said the top Indian companies, many of the top Indian companies did not even exist when he delivered his first budget. That's how quickly things are changing and the parameters of success are changing. Can you say, I'm a fast bowler, but I'm not going to bowl a slow ball? You want a slow ball, ask that guy. When even Alan Donald bowled a slow ball. Everybody bowls slow balls these days. You must have that variety. Shoaib Akhtar, in a series recently gone by, actually got a couple of breakthroughs because he bowled a slow ball, because he delivered the slow ball. Not all of you picked that up, which is good. Keep what works, therefore, and discard the rest. One of the worst things you'll hear in sport is it's a very funny line that you hear very often, and I'd like you to relate it to the banking industry. Never change your winning team. Have you heard that line before? Never change your winning team? But what if out of the team of 11, 5 are performing and 6 are turning up? Any good keeping the 6? Let me turn that round. Suppose HSBC has achieved targets and done magnificently well this year. You think everyone's going to say, you know what, I don't care whether some people did well, some people didn't do well. We are not going to change anything, guys. You think it's going to work that way? Never change a winning team. Always keep what works and discard the rest, because you don't know. There's not much point keeping dead wood around. Otherwise, teams that don't adapt to this change start building up dead wood. Until one day you discover that you've got only dead wood around. That's what the whole world is hoping is happening to Australia. Isn't it? Aren't we all hoping it's happening to Australia? Don't change, keep McGrath, keep Vaughan, keep Hayden, keep Langer. When they're 42, we'll beat them. Keep what works and discard the rest. I think they're ripe for the picking, actually, if they get a really good team against them. This is an interesting one. Do you have resources or are you resourceful? Resources are talent. Resourcefulness is what you do with talent. And you'll find a lot of people that you would have known when you were growing up were extraordinarily talented. Seriously talented. I mean, we've all been at school where there was this guy who was in the cricket team, and the hockey team, and the football team, and you were desperately trying to make one team. And then he suddenly turned on the stage and he could act better than you. 10 years later, you don't know where he is, but you're doing all right. I'm sure that's happened to all of us at some point. There was this super guy in school that we could never match at anything, but we're actually not doing too badly compared to him. And then you start to wonder why. If talent was the only thing in the world, then the world would be very different, I can assure you. So what's this all about? Size matters, but size isn't everything. I mean, you can have companies with a huge amount of capital available to them. That doesn't necessarily mean they will do well. You can have people with extraordinary amount of talent, athletes with enormous talent, who won't necessarily do well, because talent, size, resources is not everything. In the end, you come down to whether you're a slack performer or you're a stretch performer. And this is something I'd like all of you to ask yourself while you're listening to this. That's one of the objectives of this. While you're listening to this, as I said, I'm talking sport, but you're listening yourself, you're listening HSBC. Ask yourself, am I a slack man, am I a stretch man? So who's a slack man and who's a stretch man or woman? I must apologize, you know, we guys are very short-sighted. We can't look beyond our noses sometimes. High on ability, low on attitude. Have you met people like those? Let's be honest, have you met people who are very, very high on ability with low on attitude? Slack teams. When you look at teams and say, wow, what a talented team, and they're losing 0-3, is that a slack team or a stretch team? And then you look at other teams and say, not great on ability, you know, not a very talented side, but gee, they put their backside off. New Zealand? How many people play cricket in New Zealand? As many people as fit into this room, maybe less. But hang on, I mean, I asked some people to say India and New Zealand, and I'm not just an India parent, believe me, I mean, I desperately want India to win most of the time. But if you try to make an India and New Zealand combined side, how many New Zealanders would there be in it? Who made the semi-finals of the Champions Trophy? Sometimes you need to look at attitude, ability, you need to look at the right mix. And in life, I think in general you'll find that teams that are high on attitude tend to do better than teams that are high on ability. And as you look at teams that you head, or maybe teams that you're part of, just ask yourself, am I in a slack team? Am I in a stretch team? Am I in a team that's very high on ability? I mean, we do this exercise with a lot of people, and when we ask them to analyze their own sides, the first thing they say is, we are a very talented team. And it breaks our heart to tell them that beyond a point, talent becomes fairly worthless, if you don't have the attitude that goes with it. So ideally, if you have ability and attitude, you're supreme. But depending on what kind of organization you are you making the best use of your resources? In which case, you are low on ability, high on attitude, equivalent of that, you are a stretch organization. And I think that's the one word that the corporate world is looking at, just as the sporting world is looking at all the time. Can we develop stretch organizations rather than slack organizations? So resources versus resourcefulness happens in individuals as well. And I'd like all of you, I mean, there's people from different nationalities here in the sport that you follow passionately. Cricket is a sport that most of us follow passionately. You'll find people who are very high on ability, low on attitude, didn't last very long. You'll find lots of stories of those. but ignore them for now because they're not in our viewfinder at the moment. We're looking down the other end of that line. Ability versus an attitude. Low on ability, high on attitude. Have you seen people like those? India has a spinner called Anil Kumble. All his life, people have said, but you know, Kumble can't turn the ball. Not bad to take 530 test wickets, is it? But if he could not turn the ball, if he could not bowl those magic balls, you know, he doesn't rope in and toss the ball on the edge of the mat and hit the top of off stump. But he takes 530 wickets and he's still playing. It's a great example of maximizing what you have. We all come into this world with X amount. If you can